Welcome to the Leaderish Podcast, leadership lessons straight up, with your hosts, Dr. Jen and Regina. Hey, Jen, how's it going?
Hey, Regina, it's going great. How are you today?
I am doing fabulous. We had the best weekend last weekend, and we spent like the entire weekend golfing. News alert, I golfed 18 holes. Well, maybe 16, but I actually golfed and I'm not a golfer.
Did you enjoy it?
I loved it.
So golf lessons in your future.
And maybe yours too.
And maybe mine, because Tom loves to golf. Justin loves to golf. We can be golfing buddies.
I know. That would be so much fun.
Yeah, I love it.
How's it going for you? Good.
You know, as you well know, I'm a little tired today because Tom Purdom and I went to watch just at a bar because we couldn't watch it at home. Jake DeGrom pitched for the Mets. And if you're a baseball fan at all, you know that he is the GOAT, the God, DeGrom, whatever you want to call him. But what he's doing is pretty incredible. And so we had a few beers and watched the game. And then I talked to you in my little mini stupor.
It was so much fun. It was great talking to you. I loved it.
It was fun. And then I woke up today and I've been drinking water all day. Spoiler alert.
Maybe you should have had the hair of the dog that bit you.
Maybe I should have, but it's also been a busy day now. So I'm so going to bed early tonight.
Good for you.
So, I already said spoiler alert, but it is time for normally my favorite segment, which is drink of the day. Regina, what is in your cup today?
So, I mean, you know my love for Sonic. And
this I know.
And so today it is a Sonic water with peach and mango flavor. My dear neighbor introduced me to this.
I didn't know you could get water with flavor at Sonic.
Yes. I have a Route 44, depending on how you want to say it, for $1. It is $1 for a Route 44 water with peach and mango. My next door neighbor, one day I was working and she just walked in. She does that sometimes and just hands me a cup of water with peach and mango. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. This is so good. And it's like been a go-to for me. That's what
I don't even know where there's a Sonic near me, maybe on Broadway, but I need to find one because of their perfect ice.
I know, but you're so cool because you live downtown.
I
am in the burbs. I have a Sonic 3.5 minutes away from me because it's the only place to eat in my little town. We do have some restaurants.
That's not true.
Still, we have great restaurants now.
It's
but 10 years ago, 10 years ago, it was it. There was Sonic.
Wow. Well, I got to find one. I'm sure there's one downtown. Somebody tell me if there is. And also Sonic, dear Sonic, if you would like to sponsor Leaderish, we would love you to.
We need a sponsor.
There are also plenty of alcoholic drinks you can make with a cherry limeade from Sonic. So
I'm seriously contemplating what the Tito's is going to taste like in the peach mango water.
Ooh, delicious. That's how it's going to taste.
Yeah, that's going to happen soon.
Well,
Jen, I have a surprise. We have a guest today, Heather Hertzog-Moore. She's been a friend of mine for a couple years. You know her as well. We all work together, so we're super excited to have her. So Heather, what's in your cup?
So I guess we can say what was supposed to be in my cup and what's actually in my cup.
Let's do that.
So funny that you mentioned Sonic because I love their cherry limeade. So I've been making those at home with Diet Sprite and some sugar-free cherry syrup, maraschino cherries, and fresh lime. So that's what was supposed to be in my cup. However, I'm going through a remodel and the house was taken over by painters today. I have been trapped in my office. So it's water because that's what I have access to.
Yeah, I can hear them. They're obviously having a great time out there. So welcome painters to our podcast. We are so happy to have you.
Welcome to Leaderish, Heather and painters. We're happy to have you here.
You have the puppies in the background. I have painters.
Exactly.
You have painters. Yeah. I mean, Walter's just sitting here with his head on my lap right now. Who knows what antics he's going to get
You
into
can see
today.
Bear. Oh yeah, Bear's asleep behind me as well.
Yeah, the dogs have been in here with me today. One of them escaped and is running the neighborhood somewhere. My husband's got to find her. Her name is Bella.
Oh,
So,
sweet.
yes,
Sweet
and then
Bella.
Courage has had enough of me and my calls today, so she had to go away. He's like, I'm done with you. Bye.
I love it. I love it. Well, Heather, we have brought you here today to talk about executive presence with us. This is kind of part 2 of a 2-part series. Our last episode, we introduced a really cool model. And then you and I have kind of had just some very brief conversations. I do not know the details of all of this, but you and I have had some brief conversations on how you've been developing your executive presence. You want to tell us a little bit about kind of why you're here and how you got here?
Note to listeners out there, if you ask for a specific podcast, you might then in turn be asked to help them with the podcast. So just
That's
keep
true.
that in mind. So, because it started out when I said, hey, it's just, I'm working on my authentic executive presence. So why don't do a podcast on that? Andrea's like, why don't you do the podcast? I was like,
surprise, you're here.
Yeah, then I'm going to loop in all your podcasts into here, because first it was imposter syndrome of why should I be talking about this, and then it's do it scared, why shouldn't I be talking about this?
I love the way you just said that. And something about Heather is that she has been a huge supporter of Leaderish since it started, and just gives us the nicest comments and the best feedback. And so we're actually really excited to have you here because of that reason, because we know you listen. And you're exactly right, though. Do it scared. And so interesting how now that you've listened and thought about it, you can put a name to things. Like I experienced imposter syndrome, then I moved to like, you know what, screw it, just gonna do it scared. I love that.
Exactly, because I mean, like, I think that there was somebody one time that was like, if not me, who? So sometimes that's also, and maybe that blends into my authentic leadership. Sometimes that's what goes into my brain. If not me, who?
I love that.
So
it's so funny. I almost like threw my hands up like, yay. But Regina has me terrified because apparently I like do this and you can hear it a lot with my hands while we're recording. I don't know why I do that, but I just tap it. And so every time we record now, I have my hands like glued to my desk as if my brain doesn't actually realize I can move them.
And I didn't mean to give you a complex.
They're not clicking on the desk, so just move them up in the air. So
I know. Right. Put those hands in the air.
I do have a complex, so thank you. So let's get into executive presence. So last time we shared a model from Dr. Paul Aldo and really just gave kind of 3 ways to think about executive presence: ourselves, our messages, and our relationships. And then it gave some, nouns, adjectives, adverbs, whatever you'd like to call them, about how to make it tangible and to actually work on it. But this session or segment is perfect because now we're going to get into the mess of, or the messiness, not the mess. I don't know what I'm saying. Anyway, now we're really going to get into the realness and the messiness and the complexity of, so what does executive presence look like when you're actually trying to do it day to day? And so Heather, we really appreciate you being here to talk about it. First, I just want to ask you, when did that phrase kind of come into your leadership journey when you thought like, oh, either somebody told me or I heard about it or I felt like whatever, I need to work on my executive presence?
Yeah, so that was one thing that former managers, that I've worked with had said something about, we need to work on your executive presence. And I'm like, great. So, how do we do that? What is that?
Exactly.
And then it was kind of like, and I was like, does that mean like certain people have to like me? Like, like, is it politics? Like, help me understand what it is that I'm not doing. And it was very hard for them to kind of direct me because I honestly don't think that they knew what it was either.
It's a
So
very elusive phrase.
yeah,
And what Regina and I talked about last week is it's really hard to say what it is, but it is kind of a little bit easier to say this person has it or they don't have it. And it's very cultural based on your company too. So there's cultural aspect to it. So where did you go next?
so but the thing about it is it's like I've heard people refer to it as the it factor before.
Yes.
You either have it or you don't, but I don't think that's true. I think it's a skill. I think what happens is people get this complex around it where they think, oh, it's it. It's like you either have it or you don't. No, it's something you can develop. But to your point, you have to know what it is. And you have to know what is it that you need to work on. And what I loved about the framework that you've mentioned before about the different areas, like you can bucketize these things and say, what is it? But I think the key thing is to be your authentic self. And then you start going, what is authentic? And to me, it's been a journey because authentic wasn't necessarily, I think I thought that to be my authentic self, I'm just going to be like, blah, like whatever, like be out, because the company that I, in a previous life, the company was very conservative and you had this dress code that you had to follow.
I've worked for a very conservative company as well.
And I've had multiple wardrobes of Brooks Brothers that I've ended up giving away because that's just not me and that's not who I am. And I felt like I had to put on a costume every day to go into work. And I spent so much time thinking about what I should and shouldn't wear, and are the shoes open toed or not, that you don't really think about all the work. And the best thing that ever happened to me was getting out of that place and getting to a place where you could have a little bit more freedom. That dress code wasn't as stringent, and that freed me up to think about things and how I do work, because I wasn't having to think about the costume I was putting on to go to work.
That is an important topic that we didn't really even touch on. We have touched on, we had a whole conversation on one episode around dressing like professionally. And I think it was around imposter syndrome and confidence, but we did not mention clothing in the executive presence, the previous episode. And that is such an important component of how you portray yourself. And I've had the exact same experience where, part of executive presence in a previous company meant an expensive suit or, very dressy clothing. I think, guys had to wear ties at, every day at one point in time. And that was a component of executive presence. So it is very, very cultural. And then it's very refreshing when you can't, of course, we're working remotely right now, so we all have on yoga pants, but, it's very refreshing when you can bring one component of yourself to work, let alone multiple components of yourself. But the clothing is so important. And I'm so glad you mentioned that, because that's something we hadn't talked about yet.
Yeah. And to me, it's not just clothing, it's hairstyle, it's accessories, because you have to think about, I think this is a big topic now when you think about it, like people not feeling comfortable having natural hair. I mean, me, of course, I'll go, why would should that even be a thing? But it's been a thing, and it's at places where people didn't even feel, like there's whole parts kind of like that clothing and kind of look that people have felt like they had to hide about themselves. And, I think that's where the authenticity comes in, because also with that, to me, I equate it with integrity. Is kind of who you are. And also like coming up with what your non-negotiables are, because there's you have to know what you're willing to accept and what you're willing to not accept, and know those boundaries. to understand if you're going to be happy in a place. Because I will tell you, if you're not happy in the culture and it's not a good cultural fit for you, you will not have executive presence, because you're never going to be comfortable and confident enough in yourself to bring your best self forward ever.
Oh, that is so true. I've experienced that. So many people have, and I just really love that. And especially when you talk about hair, that's an important component of bringing yourself to work and being authentic, which is actually, even from the model we shared, a component of executive presence. And what color is your hair, Heather?
It's purple.
I love it. Exactly. And so that's such a beautiful way to say, hey, I have purple hair and I present to leaders. I am a leader. I'm in meetings all the time, all day, every day. And I am respected for who I am and the value that I bring and the confidence that you have in that. I mean, we have some people in our company as well that have some totally badass tattoos, and they're, able to show those off and not hide those as well. And
I have a
so
few of
awesome.
those too. So
I love it. Love it. So what else have you learned about executive presence?
One of the things is I've had to evolve my thinking a bit about it, because kind of like where I said, like, I was at this place where everything was just so restrictive. I think that there was a while that I over rotated to that. Current state, there's no restrictions. It's just like, I haven't heard anybody being sent home for a dress code violation. So, but then also that can, if you show up at a meeting dressed as if you're going to a bar, that's probably not like the best thing. And so there were times where like cut up t-shirt, things like that, maybe I shouldn't have like gone that far with it, but it was like so freeing there for a while that I over rotated. But then it's kind of like, as I started thinking more about it, to your point, it's like kind of like finding what my own style is. And I'm going to say I was doing Converse as business wear long before some certain people who are in the White House were, but not going to complain about who gets credit for it. But then it was funny going into some conferences later. Like there was a lot of people, like here I was with my statement t-shirt, like, today I have on like a statement t-shirt. I tend to wear those, but I'll have my well-behaved women never make history shirt and dress pants and a blazer, and then my Converse, and I go into a conference and then there's everybody in their suits and ties and things, and then everybody up on stage had on their tennis shoes and pants. I was like, okay, I kind of look more like them than the people here. Interesting. Okay,
that's awesome. And what does your shirt say today?
It says, first I drink the coffee, then I do the things.
That's one of my life mottos as well. My husband comes in at 6 a.m. because he's already been up and already been in his office, and comes back into our bedroom at 6 a.m. just talking. I'm like, no, I'm going to need coffee first. But back to executive presence. So what else have you learned along the way about how you can be yourself and establish your executive presence as well?
Yeah. So I will say authentic doesn't mean that it gives you the license to be a jerk. Because there's some people who are jerks. They're like, I'm just being me. No, you're being a jerk. So
agreed. Yeah. Thank you for that.
Yeah. So there are ways that you can deliver hard messages, because I'm also known as not somebody who's going to candy coat things. Like I have people, leaders who, when they want the straight up answer, they come and ask me, because they know that I'm not going to candy coat whatever they say. If they ask me a question, I'm going to give them an honest answer.
You're candid.
Mm-hmm. And
which is part of the model we talked about. So I love the way that works.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that is a big factor. And also getting feedback from people you trust. And I think that that's key. Never be scared to ask for feedback. Never be scared to ask someone to mentor you.
I love that. And a couple of things that you said really resonated with something I learned a couple years ago as well. Feedback is great, but you drive what feedback you really take to heart and action on, especially in an executive presence, because it's very personal. And so you have the authority and ownership to do what you want with the feedback that you receive. And this whole vulnerability concept that, Brene Brown has done a lot of research on. She talks about being vulnerable. And when the research first came out, I was like, oh God, I hate being vulnerable. Like that's considered weak in my family and like how I was raised and where I come from. But when she finally said, but be vulnerable with people you trust, really vulnerable. Of course, we all want to be authentic and vulnerable on some level, but to be really vulnerable, you have a circle of people that's going to be. And that's when I finally said, oh, okay. So you're not telling me I have to like go out and be this beacon of vulnerability to everybody. But with executive presence and leadership, I do think that those leaders that we really respect are vulnerable on some level.
Yeah, and it's what I call having money in the bank with people. Because I think that there's some people that you know that you can be that way with. And this may be bad, but there are some people when I feel like I'm not exactly sure, I may drop a tidbit of information to see where it goes or what happens with it that would not be very bad if it got out, just to see kind of what happens. And then
interesting.
I know, okay, that's not somebody I can fully trust. I usually have a good gut for it. And usually I know how that's going to work. And then sometimes I use that for my advantage. So like if I need to have a word spread about something and I want to do it kind of like grassroots to kind of get people, like I will get them in on it, pretend like, and be like, I'm just letting you know about this thing. And then next thing I know, it's like everybody knows about it. And I'm like, okay, cool. You can use that to your advantage. And I don't have a problem with that.
Definitely. I love that actually. Another thing you shared that as I've coached people, and Regina, I don't know if you found this to be true as well. We've never actually talked about this before, but sometimes when people receive feedback that they want to work on, pretty frequently they do over rotate.
Yeah.
Completely.
Yeah. And then especially if it is a weakness, then it gets so over rotated and then it's actually, it gets exacerbated. And then people notice it more, especially if they're not working on it in the right way and they're not working on it in a positive way. I've definitely seen that before. I've seen that myself. What am I talking about? I'm not talking about other people here. I'm talking about moi.
That's very true for me too. I was thinking about a couple people that I've coached before in previous companies where it was, hey, you need to be more assertive. And then the person rotated around to almost being a jerk. And it was like, whoa, 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 whoa. Glad you heard the feedback, but let's bring back some of your authentic self. This is you trying to do something you're not comfortable with. And it's awkward and you're coming off like a jerk. So can you rotate back around a little bit? But that's how we learn and grow. We try things. Sometimes we screw up and then we find a balance. That's so right. What is your balance that you found so far with being yourself and having an executive presence?
Yeah, well, one of the things that I will say is probably like I'll give you an example of when people report to me, I always say like I'm a mama bear. Like,
I've heard that a lot.
I'm going to take care of you. It's going to be this way. But I found out that sometimes I was too overprotective of the people and I didn't give them opportunities to go and risk and maybe potentially make mistakes so that they could learn from those mistakes. Because I'm the first person that will say, I've learned way more from my mistakes than my successes, but I wasn't letting my people learn that way because I was being too careful to protect them. So I had to part of caring for you is helping you grow and like kind of letting them, let the baby birds go out on the edge and like
Yep.
take the risk and fly. And like I'm sitting there going, but let it go, it'll be okay. And like, I had to tell myself, like, is this gonna, like, if something were to happen here, what's the worst thing that could happen? And if it's not going to be detrimental and it's going to be a good lesson, like, let them learn.
And how do you let people take calculated risk and learn? Yeah,
exactly. And if it's going to be like something that would be detrimental to them, the business, something else, okay, that's like another story. Like, you can swoop in and help them, like mama bear all you want. But if it's not something, if it's something that they're going to get more from learning than you being the mama bear, let them learn.
That is such a testament, though, to how you build relationships, period, which is kind of that third tenet that we talked about in our last episode. You are so thoughtful and warm. Like, it is who you are at your core of your being, and you truly care about humans. You don't need to fake it.
Nope.
Because you care about everyone that you meet. And I've seen that in you.
Oh, I could see that even without knowing you really well. I definitely know that about you.
Well, then I'm doing a good job of showing my brand then and being authentic, because that is who I am. And probably one of the biggest things I did was mention Brene Brown. I did her core values, where basically you have this big list and you start like, weeding it down, till you get to the bottom.
Yeah.
And I like to help people. That's what I want to do. I want to help people. That's who I am. I will jump in. I will help anybody do anything. I'm just that's what I love. And
Regina has pulled out her values card.
Because I did the exact same thing. Jen and I actually did it together with a dear friend and mentor to both of us, JD. And
I love JD.
I know, she's amazing. She was just nominated today for our biggest award at our company. I
saw that, but I was so excited.
It was amazing. Great.
And so the four that I chose, excellence is at the top for me. And I bring it up quite often, how excellence is so important to me. But you're right. Like, if you're going to be authentic, and whether you're working on your executive presence, whether you're working on being a great leader, whatever it is you're working on, if you don't know your core values and you can't stick to your core values, you will never win.
Well, and you can't be authentic to who you are if you don't know who you are.
That's true.
Thank you. That's like the biggest thing, is knowing who you are at your core. That's probably been the biggest thing that has helped me with that, is just drilling it down to who I am and what makes me feel good about what I do. And I can point you, like, everything that I do is to help someone. I'm either helping our experts, I'm helping our customers, I'm helping the people around me. Like, everything that I do is to help. And if I keep that in mind, that's how I stay true to me and how I stay authentic. And I want to, like, there should never be, and I love that you both came away with the same impression, because what I say, my actions should never be different, because that's also being authentic. You can't, like, say one thing and then act another way. That just doesn't work. That's a disconnect.
I love that. Awesome. And I love how you have wrapped. I mean, we've talked about authenticity a lot, but a lot of those other components of, like, Regina, you said this, like, the other components that we talked about in executive presence have definitely come through in what you've said around being candid, having candor, warmth, sincerity, authenticity, thoughtfulness,
self-confidence.
Yes. And for you, it's all around authenticity, but that authenticity helps you make sure that you have all the components of it. But for you, it's authenticity at the core. And I think that's I think that's so fantastic. And another thing that frequently comes up in our conversations is about values. And so, Regina, I think we have our next episode we should do on our experience with documenting and writing down our values and going through that process.
Oh, I love it. I love it.
That'd
That
be
is
a great one.
That's a great idea, Jen.
I'm so excited.
But for right now, I want to ask, what can our listeners do in the next 24 hours to work on their authentic executive presence? Heather, what do you think?
So I was going to say, go look at Dare to Lead by Brene Brown and look at your core values and figure out what those are. But it sounds
And
like
get ready for the next episode.
That's amazing.
There you go. Because really, truly, that's where things came into focus for me. Because also when we were talking about feedback, another thing we need to keep that I think everybody should keep in mind is you don't have to take every bit of feedback you get. Like
that's so true.
Take like look at it, because there was in my past life, I got feedback that I was too transparent. I'm not going to do anything different, right? Because like if I think about my core values, because that's also the thing too, is like the feedback that you get, where does that fit in to like who you are?
And I will say that our badass leader also feels the same way. And if somebody told her that she was too transparent, she'd be like, I'll take that every single day. Okay.
Yeah. I was like, oh, is that a compliment? Cool.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.
Exactly. Oh, it was criticism. Whoops. My bad.
I love
okay,
that.
So Brene Brown's values exercise, it's on her Dare to Lead website. Very easy to find. It's in the resources section on her Dare to Lead website. And we will make sure that we link that in the show notes.
And talk about it on our next episode. How perfectly did that just work out?
That was amazing. That was amazing.
That's crazy. All right. Well, can't thank you enough for that truly genuine conversation. I love kind of the juxtaposition of like, here's a model, here's how it can help you, and here's how you really dug in and made it work for you. It's just awesome. Thank you. So cool.
And thank you for having me. This is a dream come true, because I sit and I listen to the podcast and I just want to interact with you. And I actually got to interact with you. So it's like,
I'm so excited.
I know, we're so excited too. And now you realize that like it's literally just two ladies and a guest, usually three ladies, just gabbing.
Yeah, for real.
Yeah.
And helping so many people. So you're talking to my core value.
Oh. We both just did the same. Oh, thank you, Regina. Heather, as leaders, we have to fill our own cups before we can help others. We have to be fully there for ourselves before we can be there for others. And Heather, I'm going to make an assumption that maybe sometimes that's hard for you because you want to help others so badly. So what are you doing right now to fill your own cup?
So I've had to put up some boundaries. I've got a lot going on. I think we mentioned the remodel, the painters, like my life is not my own right now. So I'm having to put up some boundaries so that I can have some me time where I'm not thinking about work or something that has to happen around the house. Like I'm purposefully doing that for myself. And it's something I'm sometimes not very good at because there's always, I need to do this. I need to do that. Yeah. Like, let me help. Like, let me jump in and do that. No. Because if you don't make time for yourself, you're not good for anyone else.
Good.
That's so true. And something that's hard to learn. Regina, what are you doing to fill your cup right now?
Well, we have a wedding this weekend. My dear cousin Billy is getting married to his lovely bride, Stephanie. They've been together for a couple years and we love her and we are super excited to celebrate with them.
That's so fun. Oh gosh, right. I love weddings.
I know.
Especially right now that the world is open again. I feel like it's like what a normal wedding would be times 1,000 for like the happiness factor.
Yes.
And the fun.
That
would be a blast.
For sure. What about you, Jen? What are you doing to fill your cup?
Well, I alluded to this in the beginning of our conversation, but honestly, we've been New York Mets fans for 20 years. I mean, me for 20 years. when I met Tom, but him since he was a kid, and went to the World Series game in whatever year that was, 5-6 years ago. And then this pitcher. So the team's really exciting right now. This pitcher is really exciting. And so honestly, yesterday, just going, it was a night game, going to sit at the bar, having some beer, watching the game, just listening to him like get so excited and kind of talk to me about why he was so awesome. And they were playing the Braves, and there were some Braves fans next to us. Even they were getting so excited about watching Jake DeGrom. And so it's so fun to see Tom so excited and just have that be something we can do together right now. And then his 40th birthday is coming up. And so we're actually going to New York to see the Mets play. So kind of baseball with Tom Purdom is what I'm doing right now to fill my cup.
Oh, that sounds lovely.
And then, have too many beers and then call Regina. Also filling my cup.
Which was pretty awesome. So Jen, let's go ahead and wrap this up. Tell them how they can contact us.
All right. As you know, because we read every piece of feedback that we get, every review. So please interact with us, whether it's on Instagram, Facebook, send us an email. We want to hear from you. On Instagram and Facebook, you can find us at Leaderish Podcast, and you can send us an email, leaderishpodcast@gmail.com. And
it would be great because I really would like to read something on our next episode in the intro. Like that is really special to me when I can. So I'm going to need you guys to send some emails, please.
Yeah. Or leave us a review on Apple.
Or, yeah. You know what? Do that 5-star review thing, because if you guys give us 5-star reviews and you leave us the review, it actually knocks us up, and then we can maybe get on New and Noteworthy.
New and Noteworthy is our goal.
That is our goal. And then more people will listen, and then you can chat with your friends about all the awesome stuff that we talk about. So do that.
Yeah. So selfishly, cheers to that. Cheers to a goal of someday. What are we at? Like 800 something downloads just on Apple?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Well, Apple is even past that, I think, because it counts for multiple downloads and multiple listens. We're past that on Apple, but on just our normal aggregator, we're almost close to 1,000. So we are like right there.
We will celebrate with something more than water when we get to 1,000 for sure. But cheers to being authentically executively present. Is that a thing? Cheers to
let's make it.
Cheers to authenticity. Does that work for you guys?
That works.
And getting on New and Notable.
That's right. Cheers, Jen. Cheers, Heather.